9 years ago, my older sister Emily walked out of her apartment and vanished without a trace. No struggle, no suspects, nothing but a police file that slowly went cold while my family learned to live with the kind of silence that never fully heals. For years, I tried to move forward. I built a new life, fell in love, and eventually got engaged to a man named Daniel. 3 weeks before our wedding, I was helping him clean out a storage unit he had rented years earlier when we found an old metal lockbox buried under boxes of winter clothes. Daniel laughed and said it was probably junk from an apartment he barely remembered. He handed it to me and went to move furniture to the car. The moment I opened the lid, something inside made my entire body go cold. Sitting on black velvet was my sister's emerald ring, the same ring she wore the night she disappeared. Beneath it was our grandmother's pearl necklace, jewelry the police told us had vanished the same night Emily did. But the worst thing inside that box wasn't the jewelry. It was the photographs hidden underneath. Because the person who had been secretly watching my sister before she disappeared wasn't a stranger. It was the man I was about to marry. 3 weeks before the wedding, Daniel suggested we finally clear out the storage unit he had been renting for years on the edge of town. The place smelled like dust and motor oil, the kind of warehouse where old furniture and forgotten boxes slowly disappear into the background of people's lives. Daniel said he hadn't opened the unit since before we started dating and joked that half of the stuff inside probably belonged to roommates he barely remembered. We spent the afternoon carrying boxes into the sunlight and deciding what to throw away. Most of it was exactly what you'd expect from someone's 20s. Old textbooks, a broken desk lamp, winter coats stuffed into garbage bags. Near the back of the unit, I found a heavy cardboard box sealed with yellow tape. Inside was a small metal lockbox wrapped in an old sweatshirt. I remember laughing because it looked exactly like the kind of dramatic prop someone would hide a surprise engagement gift in. Daniel was outside loading chairs into the car, so I called out, asking if it was something important. He shrugged and said he honestly didn't remember owning it. Curiosity got the better of me. The lid wasn't even locked. When I lifted it open, the first thing I saw was the emerald ring. I knew it instantly. Emily had worn that ring every single day since our grandmother gave it to her when she turned 20. The green stone caught the light exactly the way I remembered from 100 family dinners. My hand started shaking before I even touched it. Beneath the ring was the pearl necklace Emily had been wearing the night she disappeared. The police told us both pieces of jewelry had never been recovered from her apartment. For 9 years, we believed they were gone forever. I sat there in the storage unit, staring into that box, while a slow pressure built in my chest. My mind kept searching for some explanation that made sense. Maybe Daniel had privately investigated her disappearance years ago and never told me because he didn't want to reopen old wounds. But that idea collapsed the moment I found the notebook hidden underneath the maps. The second I opened it, my hands started trembling. I recognized the handwriting instantly. Daniel's. Page after page described Emily's routine in disturbing detail. What time she usually arrived at work, which days she went to the gym, even the exact coffee order she bought at the cafe 2 blocks from her apartment. The entries stretched across months. One note near the middle made my stomach turn cold. It read, "She noticed the gray sedan today. Need to park farther down the street." I flipped forward through the notebook with shaking fingers. The entries continued like a journal written by someone slowly becoming more obsessed. The color of Emily's coat on rainy days, the way she checked her phone while waiting for the bus, small observations that only someone watching her closely would notice. Then suddenly, the entry stopped. The final page was dated 2 weeks before Emily disappeared. The last sentence was written darker than the rest, as if the pen had pressed harder into the paper. It said, "Tonight might be finally the night." I closed the notebook slowly while a cold realization spread through my chest. Outside the storage unit, Daniel was still moving boxes, humming quietly to himself like nothing in the world was wrong. For 9 years, my family had searched for answers about what happened to Emily, and suddenly, I was sitting alone in a dusty storage unit holding something that suggested the answer had been standing beside me the entire time. I didn't confront Daniel that afternoon. Somehow, instinct told me that if the man I loved was capable of what those pages suggested, surprising him alone in a storage unit would be the worst mistake I could make. Instead, I carefully placed everything back inside the lockbox and closed the lid. Over the next few days, I quietly gathered copies of the photographs and notebook pages while Daniel was at work. I compared the dates in the journal with the old timeline detectives had shared with my family years earlier. The overlap was chilling. The same weeks investigators believed someone might have been following Emily were the same weeks Daniel had written about watching her. The discovery that finally shattered any remaining doubt came from something much smaller. One of the surveillance photos showed Emily leaving her office building late in the evening. Reflected faintly in the glass doors behind her was the shape of a man standing across the street. I enlarged the reflection on my laptop and stared at it for a long time before the truth settled in. The man in the reflection was wearing the same gray jacket Daniel still owns today. When I finally contacted the detective who had handled Emily's case years ago, my voice barely sounded like my own. I didn't accuse Daniel directly. I simply told the detective I had discovered items belonging to my sister that had never been recovered and asked if he would be willing to look at them. The investigation that followed moved slowly and quietly over several months while detectives reopened the cold case. They confirmed the handwriting in the notebook matched Daniel's old employment records and traced the storage unit rental back nearly a decade. 6 months after I first opened that lockbox, the police arrived at our house with a warrant. Daniel didn't fight when they put him in handcuffs. He didn't even look surprised. During the investigation, detectives uncovered something that made the entire story darker than I ever imagined. After Emily disappeared, Daniel moved to another part of the city and deliberately began attending community events he knew her family supported. Charity runs, church fundraisers, neighborhood gatherings. It took him 3 years to cross paths with me. By the time we met, he already knew exactly who I was.